What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Three Pyramids Network with your host, the ignorant, eclectic, mad genius. And today we are checking out the NBA has an Epstein problem. From Microphone. You know what I mean? Shout out to him. The original video will be a link in the description below. Let's check this out.
Founded Apollo Global Management and was its largest individual shareholder.
Leon Black paid Jeffrey Epstein $158 million for services over 5 years.
I don't know if you're familiar with this email. I'll show it to you. The subject is Tom McMillan. Have you seen this?
That's so crazy. I mean, I have no idea where this comes from.
The owner of the Philadelphia 76ers had breakfast at Jeffrey Epstein's mansion. The part owner of the Lakers took 2 business meetings with the man. The guy who co-founded the firm that bankrolled multiple NBA franchises paid Epstein $170 million, and the commissioner of the entire league, his college roommate, just so happens to be a top executive at that exact same firm. When the DOJ dropped over 3 million documents from the Epstein files in January of 2026, everybody was looking for politicians and Hollywood names, but buried inside those files is a web of connections that leads straight to the front offices, the ownership suites, and the financial backbone of the NBA. And what I'm about to walk you through might change the way you look at professional basketball forever, because this isn't just one email, this isn't just one owner, this is about a system, and the NBA is sitting right in the middle of it. So before we get to the content, you guys know YouTube doesn't love Epstein content, so as a result this video might get blacklisted just so YouTube could try to hide this video from other feeds. We could counteract this by just you leaving a like on this video so we can push this in the algorithm, because I think this is a very important video to make. And now let's get to today's video. Now, before we even get to the emails and the meetings and the really wild stuff, you gotta understand something first, because this story doesn't start with Jeffrey Epstein. It starts with money. Specifically, it starts with a company called Apollo Global Management. If you've never heard of Apollo Global, that's kind of the point. They don't want you to know who they are, but a basketball journalist named Henry Abbott over at True Hoop has been covering this connection for years, and he calls Apollo the NBA's most important source of cash. And let me explain why. Apollo Global was founded in 1990 by a group of guys who all came from the same place, a now dead Wall Street firm called Drexel Burnham Lambert. And when I tell you the founders of Apollo Global basically bought up the NBA, I am not exaggerating. Josh Harris, co-founder of Apollo, bought the Philadelphia 76ers for $280 million. Tony Ressler, another co-founder, bought the Atlanta Hawks in 2015 for $850 million. And get this, Tony Ressler's sister, Deborah, is married to Leon Black, the guy who is Apollo's founder, chairman, and CEO. According to True Hoop, even the banker who raised the money for Tillman Fertitta to buy the Houston Rockets came from Drexel Burnham Lambert, that same firm that birthed Apollo. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver's college roommate at Duke is a guy named Jim Zelter. You know what Jim Zelter does for a living? He's the president of Apollo Global Management. Sports Illustrated profiled Silver and confirmed their close relationship going back to their freshman dorm room. Apollo's offices are literally around the corner from the NBA's headquarters in Manhattan. These aren't distant connections. These people are in each other's lives, at each other's events, making each other richer. So when I tell you that the founder of Apollo paid Jeffrey Epstein $158 million, and now it might actually be $170 million according to the Senate Finance Committee, and that Apollo is the financial engine of the NBA's ownership class, you start to see why this matters so much. Leon Black paid Jeffrey Epstein more money than most NBA teams were worth at the time. Think about that, guys. The Sixers sold for $280 million. Leon Black paid Epstein $170 million. $170 million to a guy who wasn't even a licensed tax attorney or CPA. And when reporters asked Black about it, his defense was basically that he's so rich that he didn't even notice. His exact excuse was that $158 million.
I wish I had fuck you money so bad, bro. Because that's fuck you money. Oh, yeah, I didn't know this. No. I'll be okay.
doesn't mean that much when you're worth $14.4 billion. Dude, I couldn't make that up if I even tried. And it gets even worse. Senator Ron Wyden's investigation found evidence suggesting that the money Black paid to Epstein was actually used to finance Jeffrey Epstein's trafficking operations. The Senate Finance Committee also discovered that a major US bank waited 7 years to report Black's payments to the Treasury Department, which might violate federal money laundering laws.
That does.
This isn't just shady, this could be criminal. And the man at the center of it founded the company that owns the Sixers and the Atlanta Hawks. Black stepped down from Apollo in 2021 after all of this came to light. But here's the thing, he didn't go to jail. He didn't get banned from NBA events. He just left. And the company he built kept on financing the NBA like nothing happened. Now, Apollo is in the background. That's the infrastructure. But the Epstein files dropped in January of 2026 and put NBA connected names on the front pages, and the biggest one is Josh Harris. Josh Harris owns the Philadelphia 76ers, the Washington Commanders, the New Jersey Devils, Crystal Palace in England, and a new WNBA franchise in Philly. The man is everywhere. The Philadelphia Inquirer reported that Harris had an ongoing business relationship.
That's a good way to clean some money, I will say that.
Relationship with Epstein that included multiple phone calls and at least one visit to Epstein's home in Manhattan. And all of this happened after Epstein's 2008 guilty plea for soliciting prostitution from a minor. Let me walk you through the timeline because the details are crazy.
Whoa.
In October of 2013, Epstein's schedulers sent an email confirming that Leon Black, Josh Harris, and a billionaire named Mark Rowan would all go to Epstein's home at 9 East 71st Street in Manhattan for a breakfast meeting. That's the same townhouse that became infamous during the Epstein investigation. The three richest guys in private equity just casually having breakfast at a convicted offender's house. Then in late 2014, Epstein invited Harris to another breakfast, this time with Bill Gates. The email from Epstein's team literally...
I'm glad they getting his ass out of here. I'm so glad. It's been far too long. He's been in so much shit that he's been able to slide through just because of his name and the money that he got. Yeah.
Literally said that the breakfast would be intimate, less than 6 people. Harris emailed Epstein directly asking about it. What's this Bill Gates thing about? Thanks for thinking about me. Epstein responded telling him to call and that it would be nothing but fun. After that breakfast happened, Epstein followed up asking Harris if he had fun. And Harris replied, yes, very much. Thank you for inviting me. Now, Harris's spokesperson told Front Office Sports that Harris never had an independent relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and that he sought to prevent Epstein's attempt to develop a corporate relationship with Apollo. But the email tells a much different story. Guys, you don't email a convicted sex offender saying,
thanks for thinking about me, and yes, thank you very much for inviting me.
You don't do that if you're trying to avoid the guy.
Well, I'm
that
pretty sure he
just
knew
doesn't
he was
add
a
up.
offender.
And Harris's name appears more than 500 times in the Epstein files.
Okay, yeah,
For
never mind.
context,
Never mind.
that's more mentions than some politicians who have
But he
been
was wildin'.
absolutely destroyed by their Epstein connections. And this is the guy who owns the Philadelphia 76ers. Then there's Todd Bailey. You might know Bailey as the owner of Chelsea Football Club, but he's also a part owner of the Los Angeles Lakers, the LA Sparks, and the LA Dodgers. The emails show that Epstein arranged 2 business meetings with Bailey in 2011.
Well,
That's 3 years after Epstein's first prison sentence. Now, the emails appear to be strictly business related, and there's no suggestion that Bailey was involved in anything beyond that. But when The Athletic asked Bailey to explain whether he knew about Epstein's conviction at the time of those meetings, Bailey declined to comment. Complete silence from a part owner of the Los Angeles Lakers. And look, I gotta keep it real with you. When Adam Silver banned Donald Sterling in 2014 for racist comments, and then suspended Robert Sarver for workplace misconduct, those 2 incidents were followed by league investigations. So you would think owners being tied to Jeffrey Epstein would lead to some league punishments, or at least a league investigation. But so far, there's nothing from the NBA. No investigation announced, no statement, nothing. They're sweeping it all under the rug. Now, owners are one thing, but there's actually a former NBA player in the Epstein files. And this story is so wild that Pablo Torre, you know, the journalist of the year in my opinion, the same Pablo Torre who broke the Kawhi Leonard Los Angeles Clippers investigation, Pablo Torre did a full episode on this. His name is Tom McMillan. He was the 9th overall pick in the 1974 NBA draft out of the University of Maryland. He played played over a decade in the league. Then after basketball, he became a US congressman, serving 3 terms in the House of Representatives. He was even the chair of the President's Council on Physical Fitness and Sports under Bill Clinton. So this is a guy who moved in the highest circles in both sports and politics. According to Yahoo Sports, McMillan's name is in Epstein's infamous Black Book, the contact list that has haunted powerful people for years. And his entry didn't just have a phone number. It had at least 6 different ways to contact him. Bro, that's crazy. I don't even know 6 different ways to contact my mom. This isn't someone that you just casually met at a cocktail party once. That's someone you're keeping close tabs on. And it gets even deeper. NBC News unearthed video of McMillan near Epstein and Donald Trump at a party at Mar-a-Lago back in 1992. Trump and former NBA Commissioner David Stern were both early donors to McMillan's political campaigns. When Pablo Torre reached out for an interview, McMillan initially agreed. Then he canceled 5 days later, and right
gotta grease them hands or grease them pockets.
around the same time, a new wave of Epstein files dropped. Coincidence? Maybe, but it doesn't look great. Now here's where it gets really disturbing, because Epstein wasn't just rubbing elbows with owners and businessmen. He was keeping tabs on players as well, and the player whose name kept on coming up is Kristaps Porzingis. Front Office Sports reported that in 2019, Epstein emailed one of his associates asking whether they had a good investigator to deal with the rape allegations that had been made against Kristaps Porzingis in New York. Now let me be crystal clear here. Kristaps Porzingis was never charged with anything. The allegations were largely discredited, and there were strong signs the accuser was attempting extortion. The FBI was actually investigating the accuser for extortion before the allegation even became public. But that's not the point. The point is, why was Jeffrey Epstein interested in this case at all? Why was he asking for investigators? Zonal Sports Analysis suggested that Epstein kept close tabs on cases of involving young athletes to create opportunities to exert pressure or build what they called goodwill. Think about that for a second. A convicted sex trafficker was monitoring sexual assault allegations against NBA players, possibly to use that information as leverage. The man was trying to build a network based off of blackmail. And remember, at the time these emails were sent,
I mean, who he got it from, which I'm not gonna say, they did it all the time. So like, he's used to it. It always happens. I mean, it still happens to this day. Look at our current situation. United States.
in 2019, Porzingis had just been traded from the Knicks to the Mavericks. The trade itself was surrounded by controversy because the Knicks apparently told the Mavs about the extortion allegations on the trade call. But according to multiple reports, the R word was never used, only extortion. So information about this case was already being managed and controlled at the highest levels of the NBA. And somewhere in the background, Jeffrey Epstein had his own case files on this. Now I gotta address the elephant in the room because when these files initially dropped, there was one major name that blew up on social media. David Stern, the late NBA commissioner. And look, I understand why. When people saw emails from someone named David Stern in the Epstein files, the internet lost its mind. Yardbarker and Total Pro Sports ran headlines saying that the former NBA commissioner was exposed in the Epstein files. But here's where we need to pump the brakes, because the truth is more complicated. Ryan Grimm posted on X that the David Stern in the Epstein files is likely not the NBA guy at all. He appears to be a German entrepreneur involved in the EV space who does business with China. Fact checkers actually confirmed that the BBC corrected earlier reporting that had conflated the two David Sterns, and multiple outlets identified the individual as a US lawyer and businessman connected to Sarah Ferguson and business deals, not basketball. Now, I want to be careful here. That doesn't mean we know with 100% certainty it's not the NBA commissioner. Portions of the email are redacted, and David Stern passed away in January of 2020, so he can't speak for himself. But based on the reporting that's been done, the evidence currently points to a different David Stern. And I think it's important to be honest about this as opposed to just chasing clicks. But here's the thing that nobody's talking about. Even if the commissioner David Stern isn't directly in the Epstein emails, we know that Epstein was deeply interested in the NBA. And this is where a piece of evidence you might not have seen comes in. After Epstein's first conviction in 2008, while he was a registered The man was literally blogging about basketball. He was writing NBA opinion columns under his own name like he was some kind of regular sports analyst. There's a blog post from November 30th, 2010 titled "The King is Dead," where Jeffrey Epstein is analyzing LeBron James, the Miami Heat's struggles, Eric Spoelstra's coaching, and Chris Bosh's fit issues. He's writing about Pat Riley taking notes courtside. He called LeBron more of a prima donna than even this cynical sports observer thought was possible. He's predicting the Heat can't get past their lack of bigs and health issues. This man was breaking down basketball like he had a YouTube channel. And the question nobody's asking is, why was a convicted sex offender who ran in the circles of billionaires and world leaders so fascinated by the NBA? What was the attraction? Was it fandom or was it something way more calculated? Let me bring up a few more names. Ted Leonsis. He owns the Washington Wizards through Monumental Sports and Entertainment. Leonsis was involved in something called the Edge Organization, these high-end literary and intellectual events around the founding of Silicon Valley. And it later came out that those events were financed by Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein was literally on camera at a 1999 Edge dinner. Other attendees included Paul Allen, who owned the Portland Trailblazers and Seattle Seahawks, along with Elon Musk and other big-name tech figures. And about Paul Allen, the Epstein emails show that Epstein was eager to get close to Allen. He asked to be seated next to Allen at dinner parties. He wrote about wanting to discuss Allen's mouse brain project, which was Allen's neuroscience research. There's no evidence that Allen had any interest in Epstein back, but Epstein was clearly trying to work his way into Allen's orbit, and Allen was one of the most powerful owners in NBA history. Then there's Casey Wasserman. Now technically, Wasserman's connection is more about the Olympics than the NBA. He chairs the LA 2028 Olympic Organizing Committee and runs one of the biggest sports agencies in the world. But the emails between Wasserman and Ghislaine Maxwell are deeply uncomfortable. If you look at Wasserman's messages with Maxwell, the dude was flirting with her, with Maxwell at one point offering to practice massage techniques on him. Wasserman issued a public apology saying he deeply regrets the correspondence and that it happened before Maxwell's crimes were known. But here's the thing, the damage was already done, and I think Wasserman is taking the biggest hit from this. There was a gala honoring the Bus family that Wasserman was removed from. His business is taking a huge hit. Many of his clients dropped him. But we need to get to probably the most important part of this video. Why won't the NBA talk about this? Adam Silver barely takes questions from the press about this. When Henry Abbott compiled his list of questions for Silver's All-Star Weekend press availability, the Epstein connections were right at the top. What has the NBA done to investigate? Does the league have protocols to combat trafficking among wealthy elites? What can Silver tell us about Josh Harris appearing 500 times in the files? Silver's office has said nothing publicly, and here's why that silence is deafening. This is the same league that banned Donald Sterling for life over racist comments caught on a private recording. This is the same league that suspended Robert Sarver for workplace misconduct after an investigation. Adam Silver positioned himself as the commissioner who would hold powerful people accountable. But when the Epstein files reveal that the NBA's ownership class has deep financial ties to a convicted sex traffickers network, you don't hear a thing. It's crickets. Meanwhile, CNN just reported this week that two major teachers unions with $27.5 billion invested in Apollo wrote a letter to the SEC calling for federal regulators to investigate Apollo's apparent lack of candor over its relationship with Epstein. So the people whose retirement money is invested in Apollo are demanding answers. But the NBA, whose entire ownership pipeline runs through Apollo, doesn't say a word. And I think part of the reason is what Henry Abbott identified. The NBA relies on these private equity billionaires to buy teams. As Deadspin reported, with the cost of NBA franchises skyrocketing, we're talking $4, $5, $6 billion valuations now, there's a very short list of people who can afford to buy in, and a massive number of them trace back to the Apollo Global and Drexel Burnham Lambert ecosystem. The league literally cannot afford to alienate these people. That's the conflict of interest that nobody wants to talk about. Even the NBA's method of investigating itself is compromised. How many videos have you seen from me this year? How many times have we made videos about investigations that the NBA is involved in that they're completely sweeping under the rug? There's the Kawhi Leonard aspiration scandal. There's the Chauncey Billups and Terry Rozier gambling scandal. There's also the recent tanking controversy. What I'm trying to say is even the NBA's method of investigating itself is compromised. Abbott pointed out that when the league needs an independent investigation, they hire outside law firms. But the Epstein files showed that the chairman of Paul Weiss, one of the most prestigious law firms in the country, the same firm the NFL hired for the Miami Dolphins case, was in the Epstein files nearly 600 times. Brad Karp resigned from Paul Weiss last month because of his Epstein connections. So who exactly is supposed to investigate? When Epstein had relationships with the people who do the investigating, how do you get a clean result? So let me bring this full circle. This is easily one of the most important videos I've ever made on this channel. We've got Leon Black paying Jeffrey Epstein $170 million through Apollo Global, the firm whose alumni own the Sixers and the Hawks and whose president is Adam Silver's college roommate. We've got Josh Harris appearing in the files 500 times, having breakfast at Epstein's mansion with Bill Gates and Leon Black, and thanking Jeffrey Epstein for the invite. We've got Todd Bailey, part owner of the Lakers, taking meetings arranged by Epstein and refusing to explain himself. We've got Tom McMillan, a former NBA player, in Epstein's black book with 6 contact methods. We've got Kristaps Porzingis' SA case being monitored by Epstein's people. We've got Ted Leon's is connected to Epstein-financed events, and we've got Jeffrey Epstein himself blogging about LeBron James like he was just another casual basketball fan, 2 years after pleading guilty to crimes involving a minor. And on top of all of that, the NBA has said nothing, done nothing, and investigated nothing. Now, I want to be clear about something. Being mentioned in the Epstein files doesn't mean you're automatically guilty of something. A lot of these names appear in the files because Epstein was trying to insert himself into their lives for access, for influence, or for leverage. That's just how the man operated. But when the correspondence shows ongoing relationships, multiple meetings, and financial entanglements worth hundreds of millions of dollars, at a minimum, the NBA owes its fans an investigation. And right now, we're not getting one. And that's been the trend for the past year. Anytime some crazy controversy comes out, the NBA just tries to sweep it under the rug. I mean, what happened? The NBA banned a player for life for gambling. They suspended a coach for DV. They forced an owner to sell for racist comments. But when it comes to the darkest scandal in modern American history, a scandal that involves trafficking and the abuse of children, the league that prides itself on social justice can't even issue a statement? If this is your first time seeing one of my videos, make sure you're subscribed, because otherwise YouTube may never show you one of my videos again. Let me know what you guys.
All right, y'all. What are y'all thoughts on this? I'm pretty sure the NFL has a bunch of its individuals in there also. I'm not gonna lie to you. But hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit me with the super hype button. It helps me out in the algorithms. For smaller channels like this, it means the world. Love each and every last one of y'all, man. I'll catch you on the next one, man. I'm out.